Melania Trump and Philip May help Chelsea pensioners and children make Remembrance Day poppies as First Lady stays in London while Donald talks to PM. Melania Trump has joined Philip May for an engagement in London as her husband spends the morning with Theresa May. The First Lady, 48, donned a Victoria Beckham dress as she and the Prime Minister's husband met the Chelsea pensioners at Royal Hospital Chelsea on Friday morning. Mrs. Trump, who will later rejoin her husband to meet the Queen, was greeted by Mr. May as she arrived at the historic address in police-escorted convoy. Mrs. Trump and Mr. May appeared in good spirits as they joined the veterans and a group of local schoolchildren to make Remembrance Day poppies. Mrs. Trump was greeted by Mr. May when she stepped out of her vehicle. On arrival she also met Lieutenant Colonel Nicky Mott, hospital CEO Gary Lashko and Chelsea pensioners John Riley, Alan Collins, and Marjorie Cole. The hospital was founded as a retirement home for soldiers by King Charles II in 1682, and the Chelsea pensioners are famous for their distinctive scarlet coats. Donald Trump looked serious today as he faced Theresa May for the first time since he accused her of wrecking Brexit as his extraordinary red carpet trip to Britain continues. The U.S. president's relationship with the Prime Minister is on the rocks after he trashed her plans for a softer exit from the EU, saying it would kill off the trade deal with America. Mr. Trump, who will meet the Queen for the first time at Windsor Castle later, also claimed she did the opposite of his negotiation advice and admitted Boris Johnson would make a great Prime Minister in a series of verbal hand grenades tossed following their Blenheim Palace gala dinner last night. Today Mr. Trump and Mrs. May are spending the morning together watching military maneuvers and meeting the SAS at Sandhurst before heading off to Chequers for lunch on the second day of his 4-day trip. With the special relationship hanging in the balance, the Prime Minister was waiting as he came off Marine One at Britain's top military academy, and although it is not known what he said, the meeting did look businesslike rather than warm. Mrs. May's trusted Foreign Office Minister Sir Alan Duncan insisted today that the 4-day trip had been a great success, but critics say Mr. Trump should keep his nose out of British business and some suggested the Queen should cancel today. Meanwhile, protests over his visit continue today with a giant balloon depicting him as an orange baby in a nappy inflated in Parliament Square as his helicopter flew overhead. Around 2 miles away from Westminster, First Lady Melania was being given a tour of London by Mrs. May's husband Philip, starting at the Royal Hospital Chelsea. London Mayor Sadiq Khan signed off on the Trump blimp, and the U.S. president last night accused him of abjectly failing to stop the wave of terror attacks on the Capitol last year. Last night President Trump and Melania spent the night at the U.S. ambassador's home in Regent's Park and was flown by Marine One to Sandhurst to avoid protests on the streets of London. His extraordinary entourage of up to 1,000 staff, a giant motorcade led by his bomb-proof Cadillac nicknamed the Beast, as well as multiple helicopters including Ospreys containing U.S. Marines, followed him down there. After the likely tense meetings with the PM, Mr. Trump will be treated to a guard of honor when he meets the Queen at Windsor Castle for tea this afternoon. Despite not being an official state visit, the government is desperate to ensure the U.S. leader feels he is being treated with the appropriate level of pomp and ceremony. He will then fly up to Scotland this evening before a weekend of golf at one of his resorts with his son Eric this weekend before jetting to Helsinki to meet Vladimir Putin on Monday. Protesters have pledged to follow him wherever he goes in Britain, and 10,000 police officers have been drafted in to protect him, the largest number deployed since the 2011 riots. Almost 2 million people signed a petition demanding he be banned from the UK because they believe he is sexist and racist, and Stop Trump campaigners say he will face a wall of sound outside all the landmarks he visits because supporters will bang pots and pans. When asked about the threat of mass demonstrations yesterday, he said, "I think it's fine. A lot of people like me there. I think they agree with me on immigration. I think that's why Brexit happened.